Namaskara, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Hari Om. So, welcome to the next session in the Madhwa Gnanakalpavruksha. We started a very interesting journey on the day of Madhvanavami this year, 2021, where we got an overview about Sri Madhwacharya and his life, his works, and all that he has given to the world of philosophy. In the next session, we learned a little bit about his life and his works in greater detail. The third session was really about understanding the 9 tenets of the Madhwa philosophy, of which we covered the first 4. We decided to split it into 2 pieces predominantly because of the fact that each one of them has an important role and each one of them has to be critically examined. And we, 1 hour was definitely short to go through. So in the last session, we covered the 4 very, very important tenets of Madhwa philosophy. And in today's session, we will talk about the other 5 tenets and finally bring it all together in the form of the shloka that Sri Vyasaraja has given, which actually talks about this particular philosophy. So today we will recap the first 4 tenets of the Madhwa philosophy and look at the next 5 tenets of the philosophy. That's what we will cover. So at the end of today's session, what we would really like all our viewers and listeners to be able to do is to be able to articulate all the 9 tenets clearly in their mind and to anyone who is interested. So if you have missed the first session, please do attend that. It's available on YouTube. Please access that video and have a look at it. And then we should be able to link the tenets of the first tenet of Hari Paratara. We have 9 tenets. The first tenet is Hari Paratara. That means Hari is supreme and very, very different from every other entity in the world. That's what is the meaning of Hari Paratara. Now today we will see how that is the central aspect of Madhva philosophy, and all the other 8 tenets actually revolve around it in many ways and are complementary and supplementary to that. And by learning all this, what is the path of sadhana that Sri Madhwacharya has shown us is something that we will see in this session. So this session we are likely to finish about 5 minutes before time. As I understand, there is another streaming which is going to start. So let's get into the topic straight away. The world of philosophy is pegged on 3 aspects, and this is what we had seen last time as well. So there is God, or what is called Brahman, and there is the world, which is called the Jagat, and then there is soul, or what we call as the Jiva, and or me. I'm a soul. So for us to understand the world of philosophy, we have to understand the creation in the form of who is God, who is the world, what is the world all about, and what are the souls, and how are these interrelated. So with this, to explain this, all the philosophers, every philosopher in the world has made his own attempt to getting that interpretation of God, the world, and the soul. So when we look at the Madhva philosophy, Sri Vyasaraja, one of the doyens in the illustrious lineage of Sri Madhwacharya, was asked once, what does Madhva philosophy really mean? He gave us 9 bullet points. Today is a world where we like things in bullet points. But to be able to explain such a complex concept, which is so vast, and make it sharp into 9 tenets is no ordinary feat. And none other than Sri Vyasaraja could have even attempted it. And what he has given us is this shloka, which reads like this: Shriman Madhvamate Hari Parataraha Satyam Jagat Tatvato Bhinna Jivagana Harer Anuchara Nichocha Bhavangataha Muktihi Naija Sukhanubhutihi Amala Bhaktischa Tat Sadhanam Yakshada Kritayam Pramanam Akhilam Naika Vedyo Harihi. These are the 9 tenets which make up what the Madhva philosophy is all about. So these different tenets, if we sort of separate them out, would look like this, right? Now, the one which I've colored in the amber or orange color shows the ones which you have actually covered last time, which is Sriman Madhva, meaning in Madhva Mata, Harihi is Parataraha. That means he is different, he cannot be compared, and he is differentiated from every other entity in the world. Hari has infinite qualities, auspicious qualities, and each of these qualities exist in infinite measure. So it's infinite qualities in infinite measure, and very, 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 very importantly, he is Swatantra. Swatantro Bhagavan Vishnu, as Sri Madhwacharya states in Tattva-asi, the most basic text of the Madhva philosophy. So he divides the world into two parts, one which is independent and the other one which is dependent. The independent entity is called Hari or Vishnu, and the dependent entity is the rest of the world. They all have their strengths, they all have their place in the universe. However, all of them are dependent on Hari for everything, for their existence, for their birth, and their annihilation. So, Hari Parataraha. The second one is Satyam Jagat. The world around us is true. It is not an illusion. It exists. It is temporary. It keeps changing and it keeps evolving. But it is real. It is not a false world. The third tenet is Tattvato Bhinna. Within that universe exist several entities. And each of these entities is different. So the entities are classified on different ways, and each of these entities are very different. And Jivagana Harer Anuchara. The Jivagana, that means the infinite number of souls that exist, are all Harer Anuchara. That means they are completely, when we say complete, it's absolutely completely under the control of Sri Hari. That's why we call him Harer Anuchara. This is what we had seen last time. So let's dive into the fifth tenet, which is Nichocha Bhavangata. What does it mean? That means saying that the souls are not equal. While there is a gap, there is a difference between Hari and the other entities, the entities themselves, the souls in those entities are not the same. There is an inherent gradation which exists. And this is not difficult for us to understand. The universe that we live here is a perfect universe. Everything happens as per a clear rhythm, a clear central intelligence which exists. If that is the case, there has to be some sense of a hierarchy, where someone is telling someone else what is to be done. Someone gets their energy from someone else, and so on. The concept of what we call as Taratamya is not the creation of Madhva philosophy. It exists in the universe, all around us. And it was Sri Madhwacharya's ingeniousness which brought it out and stated it as Taratamya. But what we really mean here is not a creation of some difference that really doesn't exist. It is a very real existence. No matter how democratic a country is, for example, everybody in that country is not equal. We say, yes, everybody is a citizen. Yes, everybody has a citizen, everybody has many rights. But even in a democracy, you can't walk into the president of that country and then say, I'm going to be sitting in your chair. It's not possible. The powers, the sense of delegation, the power of dependence, all is inherent in any organization. Every organization has only one CEO. Even in cases where there are two co-CEOs, they report into the board. So therefore, there is always, to keep the whole universe in a set rhythm, has to be accepted that there has to be only one Lord or one person who is in command of everything, and everything is under his command. If that was not the case, the world, the universe around had been completely chaotic. So therefore, there is a hierarchy, we get it, but what is that dependent on? The hierarchy is dependent on only two things, which is on qualities, that is gunas, and the knowledge. So the higher the level of the knowledge an entity has or a soul has, the higher will be the gradation that they will enjoy. Because the knowledge that they have is very directly proportional to the bhakti and to the strength that they have. And therefore, that determines where they stand in the pecking order of God. Classic case of the knowledge determining, and not really the birth always, which determines your hierarchy, is Duryodhana versus Vidura. Vidura was born in a lower caste in the social class, whereas Duryodhana was born a Kshatriya of a higher class. He was born as Dhritarashtra's son, and that is what gave him, or he thought, gave him the right to be the Yuvaraja or the successor. But look at the difference in the righteousness of both these two people, both these two characters in Mahabharata. Duryodhana on one side is a king, he's born in a higher social class, however, he commits one sin after the other, commits one blunder after the other to meet a very dastardly end. Whereas Vidura, though born in a social class which is much lower, he, because of his knowledge and because of his wisdom, always stands out in every aspect, in every chapter of the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata has something called the Vidura Niti, or Vidura's principle. There is nothing like a Duryodhana Niti. If at all there is anything, it is Duryodhana's lack of Niti. Whereas Vidura is famous for Vidura Niti, which is followed and quoted in management books even today. So that is what determines the Taratamya. So Nichocha Bhavangata. So we heard the thing called Samaha. We have all, first who are familiar with Vishnu Sahasranama, it says Sammita Samaha. So we say God is Samaha. That means he treats everybody equally. Unfortunately, that's not the meaning of Samaha. Samaha means someone who's just. So imagine a classroom where the teacher gives equal marks to everybody. He says, okay, no, they're all my students. They all have studied, must have studied well. So I'm giving everybody equal marks. An organization decides that everybody in this company is an employee, and therefore we should have the same salary and we should have the same bonus, and all entitlements have to be equal. No. It never happens that way. It is always dependent on one's competence and capabilities. So for God to give everybody the same fruit at the end of their celestial journey is absolutely incorrect. And God is anything but incorrect. So he's Samaha. That means he evaluates everybody with a sense of justice, with a sense of fairness. So somebody deserves some kind of some kind of an appreciation, some kind of a credit, he gives it. And at the same time, if somebody has to be punished because so-and-so has committed adharma or sins, then even that is accepted. And he gives it that. This Sri Raghavendra Swamiji in Gita Vivritti, which is his commentary on Bhagavad Gita, brings it out very beautifully. So therefore, God is Samaha, means he is fair. So this is the fifth tenet, which is Nichocha Bhavangata. There is a hierarchy. The next sixth tenet, which is probably in some sense very important to us, is what is that state that we all want to be? We all want to be in a state of total bliss and happiness. We do not want to be in a state which is where we are unhappy, even for a moment. Is any one of us prepared to take up or endure even a little bit of sorrow in our life, given a choice? No. So therefore, Sukhame, Shri Jaitirtha says in Tattva Prakashika very well, Sukhameva sasyat dukkam anagapi mabhut. It says that absolutely, Sukhameva, that means I want only happiness. I want only bliss. And that too happiness and bliss at the highest level. And dukkham, that is sorrow, at no cost am I willing to bear. So what is that state which has got perfect happiness and where you don't have to bear any sorrow? There is nothing but mukti or salvation. So what is mukti? Naija sukhanubhuti. So why did we say Sukhanubhuti? We should have just said Mukha Sukhan. Why did we add the word? Naija means that Mukti, so it defines Mukti in a different way. Mukti is reaching or getting credit for whatever you want. So therefore, it is liberation. It liberates you from this world and takes you to a state that you deserve. It is the end state is not the same for everyone. So for the Sattvikas, it is salvation or mukti or a state of permanent bliss and happiness. There are people who are not Sattvikas, who are Rajasas, who show a mix of good and bad qualities and almost in equal measure. Such people are called Nitya Samsaris. So those people keep coming in and keep going out into the cycle of life and death. Those people will keep coming into this world and going. So neither will they get salvation nor will they go to the tamas. The last one, which is, so we talked about Sattvika, Rajasa, Tamasa. The Tamasa jivis go into what is called as Andhantamas, or a state of permanent darkness. Why? Because that is what they reached. So Mukti has got three different definitions dependent on three different eligibilities, right? So you can think, how do I understand this complex? It's not really complex. Just look at it. There are 3 undergrad students. When they want to get into post-graduation, one of them goes into a medical college, the other one joins a tech school, and the third one goes into a law school. You say, oh my God, I thought everybody is graduated. Why did they graduate go to different schools? The reason someone went into a medical school for his post-graduation is because he is an undergrad student from a medical college. So similarly, a law student studied law in his undergraduation, and an engineer or a person who's got into a post-graduation course in tech has studied technology in his undergrad course, and all of them therefore have got different endpoints. So muktihi naija sukhanubhuti. So that is the concept of salvation, and that's a concept of liberation. So Bhima and Duryodhana both have got mukti, but Bhimasena, the avatara or the incarnation of Vayu, and someone who the closest to Sri Krishna, who demonstrates bhakti at its highest level, is a person who goes to mukti, whereas Duryodhana, who has committed only sins and all the wrongs in the world that you can imagine, because he is the avatara of Kali or Saturn as it's called, he goes into a state of permanent darkness, which is Andhantamas. So that is the 6th tenet, which is muktihi naija sukhanubhuti. Let's move to the next tenet, which is amala bhaktischa tat sadhanam. Amala bhaktischa tat sadhanam. What does it mean? It says that we just define muktihi naija sukhanubhuti. If you want that, amala bhaktischa tat sadhanam. If you want mukti or a state of happiness, salvation or liberation, how do you get that? You get it only from amala bhakti. Amala meaning unblemished or pure. So bhakti has to be pure, something that does not have any blemish, that doesn't have drawbacks. There is no sense of selfishness. That is called bhakti. So we'll spend a little time on this because it's an important tenet from the point of view of our action. Because ultimately we are interested in that state of bliss, and all of us are interested in what do I have to do? You told me these 9 tenets, great, but now what do I have to do? The first thing for us to do is to understand what are the myths about bhakti that we have. We say bhakti is full of emotions. These are the myths. It's all an emotional thing. Keep crying. If you don't shed a tear, then maybe you don't have bhakti. Then because it's a little blind, you should not ask questions. The moment you ask questions, that means you are not a bhakta. And since we don't understand God, etc., it's very unknown. So since we don't know, there is an amount of mystique around it. So therefore, it must be performed. So don't ask question. keep going to the temple, do namaskar and come. That is bhakti. The other one is it is done to feel good and a tool to get things. I need something. I need an H1 visa, H1 visa to the United States, or I need a green card. So what do? I just have to, pray to God, and He will hopefully get me a visa. There's a temple like that apparently in some part of India. I don't know which case, and then the God helps you to get a visa. So this is how it is. So we have made the whole act of bhakti as a give and take transaction. But think about it. How can you give something to someone and get it something in exchange when other person does not need anything from you? Whereas you have to gain everything from that person. That is the difference between God and any other entity. God doesn't need anything from anyone. He is there because he wants to be there. He helps you because he wants to help you. Whereas you and me as souls are people who are completely dependent on God for everything. You may say, I don't need God at all. But think about it. Have you been to a hospital and seen people there? How they struggle to do even the basic activities. Like breathing. You need a breathing machine to be able to breathe. You need something to help you digest food because your body is incapable of it. At that state, when you look at those people, is it that they don't want to live differently? They want to, but they are not able to do that. So therefore, it gives us a very, very clear, and it's a poignant moment. It's a poignant learning for all of us that indeed we are completely dependent on God for everything. He doesn't need anything from us. So there's no question of transaction. Bhakti cannot be a transaction. It has to be pure love. And bhakti is only for people with a weak state of mind. Now, people who are weak-minded, they keep looking at all of this. We should not be looking. So, bhakti is not something which strong people need. If you're mentally strong, you don't need God at all. That's a thinking. That's a myth. And lastly, it's a quick fix. You've got to go pray to God, ask Him for something. I'm in trouble. I tried everything, nothing worked. Finally, I went to God, and hopefully He will, I can strike a deal with Him. So that is not bhakti. So to make it very clear what bhakti is and what bhakti is not, Madhwacharya, Sri Jaitirtharu, and all our gurus have given very accurate definitions. And that's the beauty of Madhva Shastra, where seemingly abstract concepts find great definitions in the way they look at it. So there is a definition of bhakti. Madhwacharya quotes in Mahabharata Tatvam-asi. He says, Bahatmya Gnana Purvastu Sudridaha Sarvatodhikaha Snehiti Bhaktiriti Proktaha Tathar Muktir Chamyata. So what he says is Mahatmya Gnana Purvastu, meaning when you fall in love with someone, knowing his or her Mahatmya, that means his glories, his greatness, and say, wow, I am so much in love, so much in awe of this person because of his greatness. That is called Mahatmya Gnana Purvastu. That means knowing the glories, not going there without knowing the glories. So therefore, knowing God is bhakti. Not knowing is blind bhakti. So therefore, bhakti, if it has to be pure, you have to know about God and know His greatness, which is what our scriptures are all about. Sudridaha, something that does not change with time. Sarvatodikaha, that means it tops your list of priorities at all times. It is top priority for you. You will never ever compromise anything for the sake of bhakti. Sneheti means what? It's love. It's divine love. It is coming out of sheer appreciation and admiration of that person. If you do that, that is called bhakti. And Tatha Muktir Chanyata, he says, only this will get us that liberation. If there are any of these things missing, then it's obviously not bhakti. Jaitirtha in Srimad Nyaya breaks it down further. He says, Parameshwara Bhaktir Nama. So he defines, stretches it even more. Niravadika, uninterrupted. Ananta means infinite. Why? Because God is infinite. He has got infinite qualities. So therefore, our love towards him also has to be an infinite. Anavadya, something that cannot be destroyed or that doesn't go down in proportion. Kalyana Gunatva, that means all his looking at all his fantastic qualities that he has. Gnana Purvakaha, that means I get to know his qualities and I understand them, and then that's why it becomes Gnana Purvakaha. Swatmatmiya Samasta Vastubhyo, that means every other thing in the world is secondary to God. Antaraya Sahasrenapi means infinitely bigger than anything that I have known. Nirantara Prema Pravaha. What a beautiful definition. It says Nirantara Prema Pravaha. It's a flow. It's an uninterrupted flow, like the Ganges. It flows. And Nirantara, there's nothing stopping it. Prema Pravaha, it is flowing. It's gushing out simply because you love the other person so much. Right? Just imagine how much you love your children, right? How much you love other people around you. They are people with extreme amount of limitations. If that is the amount of love that you can give to people with so many limitations, how much love should you give to someone who has absolutely no limitations and whom we are dependent on and who loves us so much that we cannot imagine? If God did not love us, we wouldn't have even existed. Again, Sri Harivayu Stuti explains it very well in one of the shlokas. Matar me matarishvan pitar atulo guru bhratarishtapta bandho swamin sarvan taratman ajara jaraitar janma mrityamayanam. Here is the catch. Govinde dehi bhakti. How? Please give me bhakti on Hari. That's the prayer that we make to Harivayu, which is Govinde dehi bhakti bhavati cha Bhagavan urjitam nirnimittam nirvyajam nishchalam. So nirvyajam, nirnimitta means I don't want anything from him. I'm just doing it for the love. Nirnimittam nirvyajam, that means I don't want to take anything in return. Nishchalam, that means something which is so solid that nothing can touch it and nothing can shake it in my heart. Nishchalam sadguna ganabharitim shashvati masudeva. So that is the prayer we make to Lord Vayu, saying only you are capable of giving us this kind of bhakti. Why? Because you have that bhakti yourself. When Hanuman was asked by Lord Rama, what do you want for the service that you've given me? He says, I don't want anything, but if you want to give me something, it is give me bhakti, which multiplies. Pravardhatam Bhaktir alam chene chene. That means every second, let it multiply several folds. He could have asked for anything. Hanuman could have asked for a kingdom. He was a bachelor. He could have asked to get married to a beautiful girl. He doesn't want any of that. He just wants service at the feet of God. And that bhakti to increase all the time. So that is the definition of bhakti. Eighth tenet, Hyakshadikritayam Pramana. Big highlight of Madhwa philosophy. Madhwa philosophy has its own science of epistemology. What does it mean? It has got something called Pramana Paddhati or Pramana Lakshana, where Madhwacharya wrote a Sarvamula Grantha called Pramana Lakshana, where he has defined what constitutes proof. And this is an important thing. If you were to go to a court and say that, look, this is proof, the court says, no, this is not proof. Who decides? And that cannot be a subjective decision left to the whims and fancies of people. So therefore, in the matters of philosophy, which is super critical, he has defined his own science of epistemology, and Sri Jaitirtha has given us an epic called Sri Pramana Paddhati, which is what is the methodology to determine whether something has got Pramana or not. And he talks about three types of proofs: Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Agama. What is Pratyaksha? Meaning what we perceive through our senses. That is proof. If you have seen it through your own eyes, heard it from your voice, or any other sensory organ, all that is called Pratyaksha. That means I have seen it, I have believed it, so I can understand. And I believe that it exists or doesn't exist. Let's say there's an entity, there is a mouse here. So I say, yeah, this is a mouse. Why? Because I've seen it. And that is Pratyaksha. Anumana means by inference. Unfortunately, we are dealing with things which are of the spiritual nature. These things cannot be seen with the naked eye, but we can infer it. Look at the coronavirus today. Can anyone see it? Yeah. It is prevalent the world over, in every continent, in every country, in every city, in every state. Can we see it? We can't. So, but we can infer how, because people are experiencing it. Air, can we see it? We can't see. Nobody has seen air till now, but we all experience that there is something called air. When you put on the fan, you can feel the air coming and hitting you like a wind. So when there's a wind blowing, you can feel the air. So therefore, there is something called, so that is called Pratyaksha Anumana. That means by inference. Looking at something, you say, okay, this must be there. So if you see smoke, there must be some fire somewhere. Last one is Agama. Agama means our scriptures. So these are, if it is quoted in the scriptures, then it becomes nothing but it is accepted as a proof. So Madhwacharya has given us a template by which we can evaluate whether whatever we are saying, the matters of philosophy, are they real or not? Can it be accepted as proof or not? Has to be evaluated in this manner. It's worthwhile knowing that no other school of philosophy has explicitly stated what constitutes proof or what is pramana. And here is the best part of Madhwacharya's philosophy. He talks about two things, which is sakshi, indriya. What is sakshi? Something that is there within the sense of consciousness or conscience that is there is called sakshi. That conscience is something which will always tell you whether whatever is happening around you is right or wrong. So what do I mean by this? So what Madhwacharya says is this. You think about this. You've heard different forms of philosophy. Then evaluate and then tell me whether you believe in it or not. If you don't believe, you're not compelled to do it. But give it a thought. Don't accept anything blindly. So Sakshi is an ultimate proof. And whatever you experience because of that Sakshi is something that you should accept. For example, when people tell you the world around is illusion, are you able to feel it? Do you feel that way, or it is something that they are telling you? So here we say, Nacha Anubhava Virode Agamasya Pramanyam. So if whatever form of proof is given, if it is going against your own experiences and upon deep contemplation you don't believe, then you are not obliged to accept it. You have to question it. So, and Sri Badarajaru, one of the people who came in Sri Madhwacharya's lineage, actually says that very clearly in two of his in his excellent style. He says, Nasnehanan Nacha Visnehana. So he says, I have accepted the Madhva philosophy to be right based not on love for Madhva philosophy or hatred for some other form of philosophy. Nasnehana Nacha Visnehana. I evaluated every part of Madhva philosophy, compared it, and I'm very, very sure of what I'm saying, that Madhva philosophy is the right philosophy. That's why he says, Purva Pakshaha Yavan Madhva Matodaya Ante Siddhantu Adhe Siddhantu Siddhantaha Ante Siddhastu Siddhantaha Madhvasya Agama Yevahi. Which means that I have considered all the other schools of philosophy, evaluated them, and now I have come up with a final verdict in my own mind, which is nothing but Madhyasya Agama Evahi. So which brings us to the last and very critical tenet. All of them are equally important, so it is difficult to choose, but this is something which is rarely talked about, which is Akalamnaika Vedyo Hari. So here I would like to quote an example which Pejawar Swamiji used to quote often to explain this concept. He says, you go to, when you open the Vedas, there are different suktas. There is Agni Sukta, there is Rudra Sukta, there is Saraswati Sukta or the Medha Sukta, there is Lakshmi Sukta, Shri Sukta, there is Purusha Sukta, Narayana Sukta, and so on. There are so many suktas. Everybody seems to be suggesting that some god, Varuna Sukta, so that god is superior. You read Varuna Sukta, Varuna is superior. In Agni Sukta, Agni is superior. So then how can everybody be superior? So therefore, he used to narrate a very nice story and anecdote. He used to say, look, there is a house. Imagine there's a beautiful house. And in front of that, there's a large garden. And there are some people sitting in the garden. It's evening time. And so there is a lady who's there. She's sitting there. She's got two children who are playing in the garden. There's one person who's a gardener. He's watering the plants. There's an elderly gentleman who's also sitting there and taking short walks. Then there is his wife, who's also there. She's plucking some flowers. A gentleman comes and goes inside the house. He just goes inside the house. All of them see him go inside the house. Immediately, one more person comes and says, "Who went inside?" And we ask him. So the elderly gentleman says, "It is my son who went inside." They ask the elderly lady, "Who's that who went inside?" "It's an elder son who went inside." They ask the other lady, "Who went inside?" She says, "My husband has gone inside." And they ask the gardener, "Who went inside?" He says, "It's my landlord who went inside." They ask the children who was playing there, "Who went inside?" They said, "My father went in." Now what does it? It sounds like they're all talking about different people. But the fact is they're all talking about the same people. It's their perspective. From their perspective, they have defined who went inside. So therefore, the person is same. So if we are talking about Agni, talking about Vayu, we're talking about the other gods in those suktas, the Vedas are not telling that all of them are superior. It means that everybody whom we are talking about right now are people who are known by the same name. So Srihari is known by different names. And because these gods are inferior to Hari, they have all taken his names. It's very common to take the names of someone who are superior to you. If you like a cricket player, you will name your child also after the cricket player. It's very common to name children after grandparents, grandfather, grandmother, and so on, just as a matter of respect. So you may say, where is all this coming? Read the Vishnu Sahasranama. We talk about Rudra. Rudra as a name. In the Rig Veda, we have Rudra Sukta. But we have the name Rudra in Vishnu Sahasranam. Rudro Bhahushara Babur Vishwa Yoni Shuchishavaha. Right? Ganesha. Nandir Jyotir Ganeshwaraha. Lakshmi. Lakshmi Suviro Ruchirangada. So what is Suvarna Varno Hemango? All this, why do we talk about, when we are talking about different names, there are different names of Srihari. And all the words in the Vedas, all the letters in the Vedas actually connote Srihari and his supremacy. So God is known, Hari is known as Srihari, and he's known by different names in the suttas. So they're not different names, and every aspect of the Vedas is of equal weightage. That's the other beauty of Madhwa philosophy, where he doesn't divide the Vedas into Karma Kanda, Gnana Kanda, and so on. He says there's only one thing which is called Vedas. We cannot divide on the basis of that. Every part shows the superiority of Srihari. So the names may be different, but it is the same God. And can we have parallel sources of energy? No. Even the physics scientists have now completely understood and state in so many words that the ultimate, there has to be only one source or infinite source of energy. Energy cannot come from different places. Yes, it may look like that, but they're coming and emerging or starting from the same places. It's like electricity coming into your house. There's one wire which brings in electricity, but it supplies electricity to different products, different items, and different gadgets, and energizes them in different ways. It goes into a tube light and produces light. It goes into a mixie and rotates it. It goes into an oven and heats it. It goes into a fridge and cools it. So all this manifests in different ways. But there is only one source of, or ultimate source of that energy, which is called Srihari. And the whole shloka, if you see, Srimad Madhwa Mate is not the operational part, because it's really telling what is Madhva Mata. Srimad Madhva Harihi Paratara. So the 9 tenets start with Harihi Paratara and end with Akhilam Nayaka Vedyo Harihi. And there is a Hari in between, which is Hari Anuchara. So that means the whole shloka is about Madhva philosophy. So if somebody were to ask you, what is Madhva philosophy? It is all centered around Hari. So we will move into the last part of what we wanted to talk about, which is we understood the 9 tenets, but if you look at how this is sort of expanding in real life, Harihi Parataraha is the central aspect. Madhwacharya has written different books. He has written Bhagavata Tatparya Nirnaya, Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnaya, Gita Tatparya Nirnaya, and he has written many Khandana Granthas, that means Granthas which debate and oppose the other forms of philosophy, and so on. We have seen the list of the Sarvamula Granthas. Everywhere it's Tatparya Nirnaya. But there is one Grantha where he says Vishnu Tattva Vinirnaya. V means Vishesha, that means special. Why? Because that is the central aspect of Madhva philosophy. That is what the Vedas are all about. So therefore, it cannot be treated as any other entity or any other form of philosophy. So therefore, Harihi Parataraha is right at the center. And everything else is a corollary. So unfortunately, we don't have too much time, but let me give you some glimpses of this aspect. Harihi Parataraha. How is that connected to Satyam Jagat? It is connected. The Jagat, the world has been created by Harihi. So if the world is illusionary, it means it's not real. If the art form is not real, will the artist be real? Possibly even the artist is fake or unreal. And who will want to claim that they have created an unreal painting or a fake painting? People who want to cheat. So that means the person who created Parabrahman is a cheat. So if Satyam Jagat was not there, what would be the other reason they cheat? Because they can't do it. For example, I can't lift 100 kg weight, so I just say, okay, I have lifted it. I'm just lying. So if we are saying that the world is not real, it means the Brahman is lying or Brahman is incapable of creating the world. Both of which we don't know is true. So Hari Paratara itself will tell you that the Jagat that he has created is a very real world. It is not a world which is illusionary. As we said, it is definitely temporary. Tattvato Bhinna. That means Hari Parataraha means what? Hari is supreme. The moment we say somebody is supreme, that means other people and other entities are lower than. So therefore, the aspect of Tattvato Bhinna is clear, at least in the two forms of entities. Similarly, we can relate the topic of Hari Parataraha to other aspect. Amala Bhakti Tat Sadhana. Hari is very pure. If one has to attain Hari, he has to pray to them in a pure form. How can an impure bhakti, impure love, lead to mukti? It cannot, it should not. If somebody uses the wrong methods, for example, cheats in an examination, should that person get a seat in a university? Or if somebody cheats at work, should that person, how serious compliance cases can be? So therefore, Amala Bhakti only can lead to the pure sneha or pure love towards Hari. So like this, each aspect that we have talked about, we can go on forever on this topic because this is really the crux of Madhva philosophy. So this is where we understand the centrality of Hari Parataraha as a very, very important aspect of Madhva philosophy, and that is why we have placed it at the center. So one final time we will recall the shlokas. I would suggest please memorize this so that you all can recite it every day. Now there are certain shlokas we recite it because it takes the name of God, we are used to it, etc. But this one is something that you can recite and at the same time play that explanation that we have all heard here today. And if you read any form of Madhva philosophy, any Madhva philosophy, any book, it will be a repetition of these 9 tenets, and which has got reinforced again and again and again, because every step it's like peeling, a fruit. It's got layers and layers and layers. So if you want to get to the bottom of that, we will have to read this in several forms. So you can decide if you want to. I think you should memorize this, try and memorize and contemplate on it, and keep it in your memory. Anything you read in the Madhva philosophy, any part of philosophy, see whether it goes into one bucket or all the buckets or some of the buckets or a mixture of buckets, but it will all fit into this. And that is not restricted to only the Vyasa Sahitya or Sahitya which is predominantly in Sanskrit, but even Haridasa Sahitya. For each one of them, you can think about a Devarnama. Hari Parataraha. Shripati Purandara Vithalane Paranendu Padi Nagari Mele Kaya. That's a very famous song of Sri Purandaradasa. Satyam Jagat. Harikatamrita just goes on and on and on about what the reality of the world is. Naija Sukhanubhuti, Amala Bhakti Chitatsar Bhakti, Shriman Madhwa Mate, Madhva Matave Matavu, Sakala Shruti Sammatavu. That is nothing but Akhilam Nayaka Vedyo Hari. Mukti Naija Sukhana, Amala Bhakti Chitatsar. How do you get that bhakti? Mahatma Gnana Purvastu Siri Nilayana Gunagala Aritu Bhajisuvude Phalavidu Baldudake. Siri Nilayana. Siri Nilaya means someone who Srinivasa or Lord Sri Hari. Siri Nilayana Gunagala means knowing all his qualities, knowing his greatness. Gunagala Aritu Bhajisuvude, and understanding. By understanding Phalavidu Baldudake. Mahatma Gnana Purvastu. So this is how I think Dasarendare Purandara Dasarai, Harera Anuchara. Everybody is at the mercy of Sri Hari. That is what it says. So any Devarnama you can take, and it will fit in beautifully into these 9 tenets. Right? You may ask, Bhagyada Lakshmi Barama, Namamma ni Saubhagyada Lakshmi Barama. So then what are we saying? Oh, goddess of prosperity, goddess of wealth, walk into my house and therefore give me prosperity. That's what we want. But here, what does it mean? When we say Saubhagyada Lakshmi Barama means what? She is of course the goddess of wealth. But what is her Saubhagya? What is her luck? Or what is her fortune? It is the fact that she is the wife of Sri Hari. That is why she is Saubhagyada Lakshmi. So what does it mean? Hare Anucharaha. That means, yes, she is a goddess of wealth, but she is someone who is completely dependent on Sri Hari. She's got an enormous number of qualities, but she's dependent on Sri Hari for everything. So you can evaluate any aspect of Madhva philosophy. It will finally dock here in one of the 9 tenets. So we have traversed quite a distance coming from there. We started off in terms of understanding of Madhva philosophy. This is something which is very, very important and very foundational to our understanding of philosophy going forward. So I would now like to take a break, take a pause, and see if you have any questions for us. Thank you, Mohan Abe. You're saying what a great explanation. Thank you. I think our effort was to simplify this in some way. I'm glad that you found it useful. I would really request everyone on this call to take up the study of the Madhva philosophy and reinforce these lessons in your mind as well as you would like to. We will be conducting a session later in the series about how to study Madhva philosophy itself. What is the methodology? What are the resources? So that you can all access all those resources from wherever you are and yet be able to study Madhva philosophy at your convenience and pace it to your to suit your requirements. So we will be doing that in one of the subsequent sessions. So thank you, Mohan Andre. Thank you so much. Would you have any other questions that you would like to post? Thank you.
Yeah.
If there are no further questions, yes, please. Please go ahead. If there's any other question.
Sundar, I don't. Okay, there's one question coming in. Okay. Oh, it's a comment again.
Thank you. The analogies you gave today were very relatable, Navik. Thank you so much. I think that helps us because the way our brain works is from unknown it wants to go to know, from known it wants to go to unknown. A lot of aspects of of spirituality and philosophy appear very abstract, but if you start connecting it in your daily life, you actually see that it is all over around you, and it is that we have not seen it in that manner. So I have learned, or whatever little I have known in philosophy from Pejawar Swamiji and Dr. Vyasankara Pramanjanacharya, and both of them are so good at giving these analogies that you may forget the philosophy, but you never forget the analogy and the story behind it. So thanks for that. How different is the principles of Madhva Mata between men and women? So, Mukunda Priya Madam, I would like to respond. In the whole philosophy, the explanation that we have just given, there is no mention of anything to do with men or women. If you see, when we say the only operating part for all the souls is Jiva Ganaha Harera Vichara. So it is all Jiva Gana. That means people, souls, different souls, categories of souls. Absolutely no differentiation as far as men and women are concerned at all. However, certain practices may be different to suit, their gender, and that is why there may be some difference. Otherwise, in the entire Madhva philosophy, nowhere will you find that a man or a woman has any kind of advantage or a disadvantage over anybody else in terms of being able to pursue the study of Madhva philosophy. And Amala Bhakti is Tat Sadhana. Anybody who has Amala Bhakti, God is Samaha. Remember, we discussed that. He is Samaha. In that form, he is indifferent, absolutely indifferent to the topic of gender. So glad that you put that question. Okay, if there are no further questions, I think we were supposed to complete 5 minutes ahead of time for everybody to, um, um, you know, everybody to, join another engagement that they have. So the next session that we have will be, we will want to know a little bit about Madhwacharya's Shishya Parampara or his illustrious disciples. There are wonderful stories about how they became his disciples in the first place and why they became disciples. So here, when we talk about Mahatma Gnana Purvastu, that means knowing somebody's glory and then becoming a bhakta is exactly what happened with them as well. So they got to know about Madhwacharya philosophy, questioned every bit of it to the total depth, and then became his disciples. There was no blindness. So we have decided to split it into two parts. Part one will be on his contemporary disciples, means people who were his contemporaries and then they became his disciples. The second part will be people who were not his contemporaries, who came after him. We will start that series with Sri Jaitirtha, Sri Jaitirtharu, Sri Vyasarajaru, Sri Vadirajaru, and Sri Raghavendra Swamiji. We will cover them in the next session after the next one. The one which is going to be on the 21st of March. We'll talk about his contemporary disciples and what is their contribution to extending Madhwacharya's philosophy all along. So in many ways, we say Madhwa, this whole program is being titled as Madhwa Gnana Vriksha. So, mean the Gnana Vriksha. That Vriksha has got some interesting branches, and those branches is what we call as the different Mathas and the Pitadipatis who started the trials. So we get to know about all these great students of Madhwacharya who have made an immense contribution. And to this day, the Madhva philosophy continues to be a shining star in the world of philosophy. It's very, very vibrant, and we should all be very proud that we have got an opportunity to learn that philosophy in whichever way, from wherever God has willed us that we do it. So, with those words, I would like to close the session. Wish you all a great day, whichever part of the world you are. Please join the session next week. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Great.